This lesson for the KOINE project class will demonstrate why perhaps it is so many people, let's say not that many centuries ago, perhaps late 19th century, advocated post-trib rapture, and also demonstrate why we shouldn't be disappointed when people aren't able to give a rationale for pre-trib, that is, how do you move from what the text says to what has become a prominent development in dispensationalism. And of course, I know more people who can say Amazing Grace is their favorite song, but they don't know how many verses and they couldn't sing it. Now, like me, I can sing along with a congregation. That is when I do, because I certainly don't if I'm preaching that day, but I can go along with people that do that. And of course, several people have come our way, and well-meaning people. Now, we've had the others who were there just to, they were ill-disposed toward a New Testament church. They wanted to form their own, whatever that is. That's just a sociological phenomenon that's common in all throughout the world, in all cultures, creeds, whatever. But they would say, oh, you just have to know when the Bible's talking about the return and when it's talking about the rapture. Now, they couldn't tell you how to know that. They couldn't tell you the determinant. They just said, they would say that. Or they'd say, well, the tribulation and the wrath of God, they're the same thing. But now they couldn't give a rationale for it. So I no longer expect that. And that was years and decades ago. But I once thought if someone was for something, that they had some ability to show a rationale, because I wanted them to help me get there. Dr. Walter Martin was once speaking, and this is a lifetime ago, because it's on a radio, and something about tribulation. And he was talking about pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, and he just said in exasperation, it's all tribulation, just move on. Well, that helped me, but it also helped me think about why would we move on and not look for a determinant. So we'll go back to our text, 1 Thessalonians 4:17-ish. I think I'm just going to do the first part. And then Matthew 24:29-ish, just take a fragment. And then see what it was. For example, a gentleman once said the old timers used to be post-trib. Now, he couldn't tell me why, and he couldn't show me, except he could do with these two texts the same thing in the King James Bibles that we will do today with our KOINE. And our KOINE is just our discipline. It gives us causes us to really take a look at the text. So then we ourselves, this is speaking of what occurs when Jesus returns, then we ourselves, and you should have this one rather, well, what we'd say, know it by heart by now, the living ones. The living ones, the ones, I don't have room, so the ones, Perry, that's the preposition literally around, Lape, Aminoi, sorry. The ones who are remaining around, so the ones who are remaining around, here we go. And then it says, here's that adverb, simultaneously, which really shook me, because I was taught this or noticed this by using the text, of course, but someone using the Vulgate who was supporting the word rapture, they found it in the Vulgate, and they were showing, well, here's the word rapture, which was here, but right next to it in the Vulgate was this word right here, simul, which was really fascinating. Now, of course, it's difficult to find anyone that's interested in looking for text, but it was interesting because his intention was to show rapture, not to show simultaneously, together with. This is a strong word here, but you could read this in your Bible, the King James English Bible that we agreed to use. This is the TR text we've agreed to use, and you can see this right here for yourself, that it's all together, one event, logically speaking. Now, the question was, how do we distinguish the advocacy today by, let's say, J.R. Graves, who says it occurs in phases and not necessarily simultaneously? So that's another story, but we'll get there. Together with them. So there we go. So the difficulty in expecting a rationale is you would really need to be able to show from how would you move from this together with and it all happening at the same time, how would you move it to the phases, and how would you move, as I said earlier, there are those who say orge, wrath equals thlipsis. There we go. A tribulation. They say those two things are the same. So we would say it's been conflated. And that's not in a negative. Conflated. I don't mean that in a negative, pejorative way. So they've conflated these two. And ironically, then they would say, and this is why you shouldn't be so hard on dispensational. There's a conference in May I'm thinking about going to, Grace Evangelical Society. I've never been anything like that, but it's on dispensationalism. And I really think I should go and learn how that was developed and how it came about, and learn why it's probably more work involved than most people care to do. But it would be worth it to understand it. And then they would then say the return, resurrection, rapture. The return, the resurrection, and the rapture. They say you have to know, so they separate these. And again, the first person that told me did not know me that well and didn't know I was a student and avid learner and really wanted to understand the rationale and how'd you get there. And they just kind of made this real casual comment and said, oh, you need to know when it's talking about the rapture and or the return, as if those things were happening at different times. And I want to know how they got there. I want to know that more than the position that people pick. Just like I would say if I was inclined toward music, I would want to know more than just your favorite song title is Amazing Grace. But that's about it. That's fine. Wonderful people in this world who love Amazing Grace. They'll never study it, never know the origin, the history of it. Perhaps will never be able to lead music, nor would they even know all the lyrics, but they enjoy the song when they're there and the parts we know. But that's the way the Bible is for most of us. So it was interesting to me to watch how combative some wanted to be, especially the least invested, the ones with the least investment in understanding, didn't need a rationale. They just preferred it and went on. But what was really the tell was when they decided to trigger themselves and accuse someone of, you've triggered me by not going along with what I'm saying. It was that, then I learned that was just, there is a social feature in everything like politics. You don't have to qualify to participate. Just make sure your side wins and silly stuff like that. But we're talking about something more important. So here is immediately, this is in Matthew 24:29. And I've done a video before, was Spurgeon right about the rapture? And I went back. He would be an old timer. And then you go back even farther to people. And then, like I said, I would love to have known who the people were the man was referring to when he said the old timers used to believe. But immediately after, well, here, I'll just keep that after. There's meta, after. And it says, tain, thlipsin, there, the tribulation. And that's accusative. There we go, the tribulation. So this term here, when its object is accusative, and this is accusative case for those of you in the class, that's why we're here. accusative case. It says it's to be translated after when its object is accusative case. So their rationale, not having it divided, as some would say, and I don't mean in a critical way, but some would say they hadn't properly divided or rightly divided all these texts, Matthew from the church letters, or this event that Jesus referred. So that's a lot of work there. It's just finding someone that can show you how they got there. You know, you won't find a lot of people that have ever traveled that, made that journey. They've, let's say, picked, whatever that is. And that's really the case. That's why I don't have any, I don't even know what it is to be disappointed in someone because they can't give a rationale. I don't demand that. I am honored to give a rationale to others when they ask of me for my certainty. But I have certainty about what this text says. And then when I study the process of moving from this to what people call pre-trib, because I didn't want anything to do with any of the tribulation, as I now admitting my naivete in the mid-'80s when Dr. Walter Martin, he died in 1989, but when he had said it's all tribulation, move on, I didn't want anything to do with any tribulation, pre, mid, or post. And again, the way I heard the preachers talk, any minute, any second, the imminence was there, and I had no idea that I would have to be around even while we're here this late in history. So you have a blessed day, but don't be hard on the old timers, and don't be contentious with the new timers. And the only reason I say it is because I'm not, and I don't get why I would be. I was disappointed in some who belittled people because they wouldn't go along, and then they couldn't understand me because they didn't want to understand what they were, or they didn't understand their rationale. They just said, well, this is what it says. If you don't believe this, then this, this, this. Now that's called priming also. If your only apologetic is to accuse people of consequences for not believing something, it might not be the best way to present your case. But again, this class, just remember your language and know that there's a lot more work to develop. And that's a feature of apologetics. Most people would rather never entertain or engage because that's a lot of work. Again, it's like first time I was in proofs class doing our discrete math, we had to write proofs. So it's one thing, let's just be just a silly example. It's one thing to say 2 + 2 = 4, but could you write a proof for that? So that's a lot more work to prove something or write a proof for it and give a rationale than there is to just simply assert. So you have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.